Hello and welcome to a game from the Dominion League, but it is from the last season of the Dominion League, season 56, I believe it was. I will not participate in the Dominion League for the next 2 or 3 seasons because I have a couple things in life to sort out. However, once those things have been sorted out, I will be back to providing league content for you. In the meantime, I saved this game because I enjoyed it a lot and wanted to share it with you. Let's have a look at the kingdom. We have some draw in Marquee. Cavalry with the horses can draw as well. Swamp Shacks is a tremendous card for draw, but it requires a little bit of setup. Groundskeeper is there as a focal point, a focal card, as I like to call them, a card that you want to center your strategy around. I would like to gain many groundskeepers and score points off of them. With respect to gain and plus buy, we have Sculptor for gain, Stonemason can gain, Wheelwright can gain, Abundance is plus buy, and you all know how much I like Abundance. I'll definitely be looking for a way to make it work. Plus buy is also in Marquee. So we have all the pieces necessary to build up an engine. Coven is there, but because I saw Stonemason, I thought honestly the game would be too slow for Coven to take effect, in the sense that when Coven hands you a curse, it doesn't go into the deck, so it doesn't affect your consistency or power at all until all 10 are out, and then they come into the deck. But I felt I could be faster than the Coven. We have all the pieces. We have Swamp Shacks for actions and draw. We have draw and Cavalry Marquee. We have lots of gain and plus buy options. I thought, all right, let's try to build this engine and maybe focus it around gaining groundskeepers. Maybe I have a Marquee and then Wheelwright can discard the Marquee, gain groundskeepers, gain more Wheelwrights. It can build up into something quite explosive here, I felt. Now, before we get to that end, how do we start? Cyrus has first player in this kingdom. I have 2-5. On 3-4, I would consider something like City Gate and Silver maybe. The idea with the opening is to get to 5 quickly because you want Sculptor. Cyrus has this similar, close enough opening to myself here. I considered opening with a Stonemason on 2, but it didn't seem good. You could use it as way of the seal. Yes, that is possible, of course. However, I felt it wasn't necessary. At this time, I will end up probably buying a stonemason, overpaying for something later in the game. I'll get my stonemason then, and it'll have much better targets for trashing. I'd much rather use it for trashing than as a seal. We spoke about the 3-4 opening, but on 5-2 it's very straightforward. You go straight for the Sculptor. Why? Sculptor gains many key cards on the kingdom. Gains Abundance, which we spoke about, but it can also gain Cavalries and Swamp Shacks. Recall, when you gain a Cavalry, you draw 2 cards and gain a plus buy. Could be helpful. Alright, identical openings. First shuffle happens. Now let's see what happens here on turn 3. For Cyrus, they buy a City Gate. Very good. This makes sure that they will see their Sculptor on the next turn. I have a choice with my Sculptor here. It is either going to be a Silver or an Abundance. I opt for the Abundance, and there is a reason for this. Because of my hand having 2 estates here, I know worst case scenario on my next hand, I'll have 4 copper plus the Abundance in play. That will allow me to buy something potentially expensive, potentially. In a better scenario, as you see here, I have all 5 coppers in my hand, and then I can buy another Sculptor. So I went for the Abundance. I chose not to trigger it on turn 3, saved it for turn 4 when I would have at least 4 copper to buy something there. Maybe I could have even bought just another abundance, tried to save more of them aside, looking for a bigger payoff from the abundances. Okay, so now it's Cyrus's turn with the sculptor. Let's see what they go for. They have the same choice, I think, with the sculptor. They could go for Swamp Sharks or Cavalry, but I think none of that is helpful right now. The only genuine choice to consider is between another silver or another abundance. I'm very happy with the 5 on this hand because I do want another sculptor. I think the second gainer is going to pay off. Here, you see Cyrus has a different hand with the sculptor. They had 4 copper and they gained the abundance, obviously. So if they wanted, they could have gained a second silver, picked up a second sculptor. They opted not to do so. Instead, they made the play I spoke about on turn 3 here. They buy another abundance so that the abundance they put in play would stay in play, hopefully looking for a bigger payoff down the road somewhere. Anyways, we get to 5. Luckily, no city gate, just pure shuffle. And we buy a sculptor, obviously. We spoke about that. It seems very, very important, especially with 7 abundances and 10 of cavalries and swamp sharks left. The extra 3 from the abundance goes into a city gate. All right. I like my deck a little better now because I have the second sculptor. Let's see if that translates into anything meaningful. That is, sometimes you get too many gainers and it doesn't work out for you. All right, so Cyrus gets up to 5 here. This is probably going to be another sculptor. No, instead they opt for a cavalry. Draws them a couple cards. Returns them to the action phase. Okay, probably looking for the sculptor if I had to guess. They still have 4. They can buy another cavalry if they like to go looking for the other sculptor, maybe looking for the abundance. They do pick up 2 cavalries here. They unfortunately do not find their sculptor. However, they are able to find their second abundance. They put it down. Not a great turn for me here, but it does allow me to get enough money for one of the important 4s. I choose a cavalry. I know I have 2 sculptors. I would like a shot at finding one of them on turn 5 here. Luckily, I get there and I put down an abundance, pass it back to Cyrus. We are approaching a point soon where I would have collected enough resources to be able to do something quite powerful, but I think we're not quite there yet, and it is one of those things that happen to me mid-game, a sort of beautiful mid-game realization. See if you could put it together from here, but we both, Cyrus and I, are collecting all the pieces for this big reveal, so to speak. Okay. Cyrus obviously now finds their sculptor. They gain another abundance. They have 2 of them in play now, and they have 4, so they can buy one of these actions. If I had to guess, it would probably be cavalry, but they opt instead to do the same thing apparently. Swamp Sharks is the play here. They get up to 6, and already at this point, Cyrus has the ability to have a big turn. However, I think here they miss. No, they don't quite have it yet. I apologize. They're 1 piece short, missing 1 piece here. So they have the 6 and the 2 buys. They thought about wheelwright, decided against it. I agree with them. I was happy to see them pick up the wheelwright. Instead, they go for a marquee, which is a very good card. Draws many, many cards. All right, I see my second sculptor. I could use it to gain another abundance if I like, or a silver, or I could use it as a seal. That thought briefly crossed my mind. However, I felt like it would be more useful as a sculptor. But I only have 3 money. I don't have quite a lot of money to liquidate or to buy a nice action and liquidate all the money on the abundances. Instead, I choose something different here. I choose to gain an action, swamp sharks, because I would need them eventually. But the idea is I wanted to use one of these actions as a seal so that I would be able to now top deck a marquee. However, I had a better play here. Didn't quite see the trick in the kingdom yet, but I, on turn 6, was in position to make a very nice play. I do realize it later in the piece, but getting the marquee is fine. In fact, I'm able to not only top deck a marquee, I'm able to top deck a marquee and a swamp sharks. It does cost me a villager because I had to play that swamp sharks as a seal. I think it's well worth it though to have the marquee at the top of the deck, and critically, Cyrus does not find their marquee at the top of their deck naturally. I feel ahead now. They do put down an abundance. We lead with marquee, obviously. If you play the swamp sharks first, then the marquee, you draw less cards. I rather have the card draw and give up the villager for that. Swamp sharks comes down because I have no more villages, but I don't really need to do that. I could have just played the cavalry raw. And here I use the seal. I use the cavalry as a seal to get up to 4 with the 2 abundances, and now I buy a cavalry with the 4 that is going to trigger both my abundances. So first the cavalry trigger. I see what's next in my hand. Okay, fine. Then I trigger both the abundances, and now I have the option to top deck the cavalry, but I don't want to top deck the cavalry because I think it is at this point I see what I can do. Sculptor comes down, obviously. Don't want to top deck that abundance. I gain back my villager. And now I have all the pieces. I have the seal, I have a villager, and I have 6 coins. Still don't see it. Instead, I opt for another pair of Marquee and Swamp Sharks top decked, which is good, but it's not the best I can do there. But I had all the pieces. I missed it. Both of us have missed it so far. I will get there eventually. Let's see when. Maybe have you got there yet? Okay. Cyrus leads with the Marquee. As expected, down comes the cavalry. Last villager. Probably they don't have the sculptor because they would have played it already. They opt to burn the last villager for a couple horses. And they buy a couple swamp sharks using that abundance money. None of it goes on top of the deck, unfortunately for them. All right, so lead Marquee, draw many cards, sculptor against the abundance, so I get back a villager. Now I play the swamp sharks here. This will draw a card finally. Will draw a card. And I'm in the same position here where I have to use one of my actions as a seal to get up to 4. 4 is much better than 3 in this kingdom. And now I am going to make the exact same play I did on the last turn where 4 and 2 abundances are in play. I buy a cavalry, draws me a couple of cards, trigger the abundances, and I opt to not top deck the cavalry here. However, I think at this point I realize what is possible in this kingdom. Again, I draw into a sculptor, allows me to gain yet another abundance. Sculptor gains the abundance, yep. And here I finally realize what is possible with the stonemason. So I have all the pieces now. Again, pieces are at least 1 villager, at least 6 coin, and you have a seal already in place somewhere. Stonemason is going to overpay for 2 4s. So what I can do is choose the order of the 4s. I choose our swamp sharks, put it on top of the deck, and then I choose a cavalry. Well, I was supposed to choose a cavalry. I do choose the cavalry here. That cavalry doesn't have to go on top of the deck, but I do trigger the cavalry so that I draw into the swamp sharks that I top decked. Doesn't matter when you trigger the abundance in this sequence. Now, look at how many cards swamp sharks draws. 1, 2, 3, 4 cards. That is as much as a marquee will draw off a starting hand. And you get 2 actions for it. That is great. What is even better is that I can do it again because I drew into 2 more copper. Top deck a couple horses along the way as well. Wow, 2 more abundances in play. I said, all right, let's keep going with this. This looks very, very good. And I have the actions not from the villagers this time, but from the swamp sharks that I top decked the first time. Make the same play here. I avoid top decking the cavalries. Look at how many cards this is. This is where Swamp Sharks outshines Marquee and many, many draw cards in the kingdom. If you have this kind of setup, and especially here, I'm able to get the yellow cards into play, which makes this second Swamp Sharks draw what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards. What kind of card in Dominion draws 6 cards, gives you 2 actions? Not many. Not many. We're able to draw up until the end of the deck here even. And I can make the same play again, but I don't need to because I've drawn the whole deck now. So I decide to do something slightly different here. Instead of making the stonemason play for cavalry swamp sharks to draw many, many cards, I choose to use one of my stonemasons here, trashing a cavalry. I want to keep the horses. I will not play these horses if I can avoid it. Gain a couple silver. Draw into the silver one of the horses, save one of the horses, top deck 2 more of one of the cavalries. And look at this turn. Look at this turn. This is amazing. At this point, honestly, I became very concerned about the end of the game. Look at the piles. There are 2 abundances, 3 cavalries, 2 swamp sharks left. My opponent can make plays like this and maybe win. It wasn't clear to me at all how much they could do. So when you're not sure of your opponent's capability, score. Try to make things as difficult for them as possible. I went for 1 province, considering an estate here, and I do go for the estate even. Maybe overly conservative, but I went for it. Now, let's pause for a moment. We talked about groundskeeper at the beginning of the game. However, piles are so low. There's been no time for groundskeepers. Maybe even I could end the game on my next turn if I see a good hand. I didn't top deck anything except 2 horses, so maybe it doesn't work out, but maybe it does, and then I win on this turn, maybe. As it turns out, we seem to have quite a good hand here, and Cyrus doesn't have that good of a hand. They are just able to gain an abundance, put down 2, pass it back to me. Now let's see if we can end the game here. Lead with the horses, of course. Doesn't quite find us enough money. This is wrong. Don't lead with the swamp sharks. You could do much better with the swamp sharks. Undo. Yeah. Lead with the sculptor. Lead with the sculptor. Gain the last abundance. I can gain a silver here to get up to 4, but you don't need to get up to 4. 4 was just helpful, was just important because the good actions are at 4. But if you just want to trigger your abundance, all you need is 2. Pick up a stonemason that triggers 3 abundances, which gives me the 6 necessary to make the stonemason overpay for 2 4s. I didn't have a seal in play here, so I'll just get the draw from the cavalry, but that is fine. That is fine because I already have the swamp sharks in hand. I don't need to top deck a swamp sharks to bring it into my hand. I already have it in hand. I just want to get treasure into play so that my swamp sharks draws many cards. So this one should draw what, 2, 3 cards? 2 cards. Cavalry now, because later I'll have to discard many cards to the cavalry. And swamp sharks will see that I draw the rest of my deck. In fact, I already have the win in hand trivially. Gain silver. I'm going to make the same play here. Stonemason overpay for 2 4s and win this game. This was very exciting, and I was happy that I was able to make a mid-game discovery that allowed me to win what I thought was a beautiful game. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.